There are these 4 tools up here: Union, Subtract, Intersect, and Difference. Imagine I have a square and a triangle and I want to make a house. To do that, I'll select the 2 shapes, and by clicking on Unite, the 2 shapes join to make the house. Let's see now an example with Subtract. We're going to make a crescent moon. To do that, first create a circle, then duplicate it by pressing Alt. Then what you do is subtract the surface of the first element. So select both and click on Difference, and we get the moon silhouette we were looking for. Let's see Intersect. Make another circle and duplicate it. So Intersect will give me the common area of the 2 shapes, the area where both meet. Select this and click on the Intersect icon, and you see the result could be something like a leaf, for example. Finally, Difference. This tool does tend to give strange results, and it isn't one of the most common tools, but it's good to know how it works anyway. I'll make 2 circles again, and with this option will give us the areas where the shapes don't meet, the areas they don't share. Select and click on the icon, and the result is the elimination of the areas the shapes shared. A characteristic of the program is that when we use the bool operations, it creates a group, and in that group we have the original shapes. It doesn't delete them. This is a great advantage because then by double clicking I can go in and adjust the result to my liking. So as you can see, we have the sum of its elements, but if I need to get rid of that and make a real shape, I can just select it and use that flatten tool, and we get that final shape. Now the group I created has disappeared, and if I double click, you see that the Edit tool allows me to freely adjust all the anchor points. It's this tool right here. I already have it on my toolbar, so it's easier to access, as I always say. To show you what I'm going to do, I'll first create a shape, then select the scissors. This tool allows us to delete the lines or segments of a shape. I can go deleting parts of the strokes wherever I want. For example, here I've made a triangle. But now we see that the path is incomplete. To close it, just go to Layer, Path, Close Path. This way we have our closed shape and its fill. So this is the Scissors tool. As you can see, it allows us to delete parts of a shape's path. What is a mask first of all? Well, we can apply a mask to a layer and this way control selectively the information that we show or hide on this layer. We can understand this better with an example. Imagine that I want to create a typical round profile of this photo, with a username, for example. The first thing I'll do is create a round shape, and that will be my mask. Everything that shape contains will be shown. So let's apply this mask to the image. To do this, select both layers, right-click and select Mask. See how the mask is created on the image. Now, the information that is within that circle will be shown, ignoring the rest. We'll add a background so the transparency we've created is clearer. When we create the mask. A group is created where we now have both layers. The circle has become a mask and the image is applied to that mask. I could carry on modifying the size of that image by simply selecting the layer and adjusting on the dimensions, for example. And the same goes for the mask. I can select it and continue working on it for as long as I need. Any element that I include in this group automatically becomes a part of that mask. Pay attention to the next example and you see it clearly. Create a rectangle outside, and although it doesn't belong to the mask, the moment I move it and include it, it then belongs to that mask. I'll change the background color so you can see it clearly. See that the rectangle is also masked. I'll move it and place it in its final position. Remove the border, change the fill to white, and lower the opacity. The next step would be to include a text with a username, as we're creating a profile image for our design. For example, we could put Victoria. As you can see, the next text has been created outside of the mask. We'll do the same as before, drag until it belongs to the mask and place it on top of the white rectangle. So we've achieved a modern round profile image using the masks and masking the original image we had. Before we carry on, I just want to delete some of these unnecessary things. Okay, another thing I wanted to show you of the masks are the alpha masks. To get this, go to Layer, Mask Mode, Alpha Mask. This allows us to not only create a mask, but also include gradients that in turn let us create a transparency in the mask. Again, it's best to show you with an example. I'll apply a linear gradient to this mask that goes from white to black, and for the black, I'll apply 100% transparency, so lowering the alpha channel. The alpha channel is the one that controls the opacity of the pixel. This way, it creates a gradient that becomes more transparent the closer it gets to the black. Remember that you can use the handles and play around with parts of the image that you want to show or hide. You can show the background or not, and you can create interesting effects. The first thing we'll do is create a shape. Imagine I want a blue border with a certain thickness, a lighter fill, and some shadow. Imagine that I want to use this style for the whole project, for example on buttons or lines, so I'd like to save it so I don't have to do it every time. So let's select the layer where this element is and go to the inspector properties where it says No Shared Style. On the drop-down menu, select Create New Shared Style and type in the name you want to give it and press OK. And there you have a new style. Then we could make a circle, for example, and then apply that style. To do that, just go to the inspector and select the style that we saved and see how it applies to the circle. It's important that you know that it only saves the elements from the opacity down. It doesn't, for example, save the border radius. If we want to create reusable elements that are more complicated, then we have to revert to the symbols. But we'll see this later on. You can organize your style library. Go back to the inspector and select Organize, and there you can see all the styles. From here, you can delete them by selecting them and clicking on the minus icon. We're going to make some icons to refresh everything we've learned so far. So we'll work with some basic shapes, some bool operations. The first icon we're going to make is a camera. So create a rectangle. And I already have the style I want to use saved here, an orange fill with no borders. Then make a circle. Find the center of the rectangle and pressing Alt and Caps, make a proportional circle with its center in the middle of the rectangle and make it white. Now copy and paste with Ctrl C and then Ctrl V and see that it pastes in the same place. Make it smaller and apply the style. Make another rectangle, apply the style, and now select everything. And on the top section of the inspector, we have all the align tools. Select Horizontal Align Center. Round the corners, I think 15 is more than enough. So our camera is ready. Press Ctrl G to create a group, and there we go. Let's do our next icon, the typical settings or configuration icon. To do this, select the Star tool, make it proportional and define the center by pressing Alt and Caps. Increase the number of points, let's say 17, to see how it looks. You can always change it later. The next step is to create a circle. Find the center of the star shape and from there draw a circle with Alt and Caps. Select both shapes and center them both horizontally and vertically and use the Intersect tool from the bool operations. So this would be the result. Now make a circle in the middle and subtract it to get our settings icon. An advantage we have, if you remember, is that the shapes combine together and we can modify the bool operations. You can select the star now and adjust it until you get a result you like. You can also take the circle and change it to your liking. Now I just need to apply the style and it's done. Now we're going to make a key. Create an ellipse, more or less like this. Then create a rectangle. Transform it and give it some perspective. Make it smaller and fit it into our design. I'll copy the same shape with the Alt key and move it up, as this will be useful in our design. Now add these two parts and subtract the rest from the previous process. I don't like how the top part looks. I can modify the position of the shapes by pressing the arrow keys and moving them to where I want. All that's left is to apply the style I'm working with and it's ready. Okay, let's move on to our last shape, a heart. Make a rectangle and rotate it 45 degrees. Copy and paste and rotate it the opposite way. and place it how you see here. Select the two shapes and use the Unite tool. Now just adjust the border radius until you get the heart shape. So that's all for now. Revise all the tools we've seen so far on this course and we can start to work on something a little bit more serious on Sketch. Up to now, we've learned how to save and apply styles to shapes, but remember that this is limited. We can't save the whole structure, so to solve this, we have symbols. Symbols are an element in their own right. They are saved completely, meaning just as they are, and we can reuse them throughout the project. For example, buttons, headers, icons, etc. An advantage is that when we modify the symbol, this changes the whole project. We're going to make a button first, with a border radius of 100. Use this green for the fill and remove the border. Make a text that says download and put it in place. Create a quick and simple cloud as the download icon. Also make a triangle and add this to the shape, completing the cloud. Make it white and place it on the button. Once the button is how we want it, for example, I add a shadow, select everything and group it. Then go to the Create Symbol icon in the toolbar and name our symbol. As you can see, a page appears where it has the original copy of our symbol. It's very easy to use the symbol in our project. You just have to go to the icon on the left, look for the symbol and select it. Then you can place it wherever you want. Imagine that now, for whatever reason, you want to change the color. Just go to the Symbols page, select it, and adjust the properties. In this case, I'll change it to blue. Now, go back to the page and see how the buttons have changed color. If I only want to change one without changing the original symbol, I can adjust it on the same symbol. If I select it, see in the inspector how I can just adjust this one. So I'll change download to file here, and it only affects this specific symbol. See how the original symbol remains exactly the same. Okay, so these are the symbols. Now you've seen the difference between the styles and the symbols that are an element in their own right that we can save and reuse.